What if I could prove that we are free? Now, I mean not just in the sense that we have free will and I can choose to move this mouse, not just in that sense of strong determinism, or was that weak determinism, but I mean free in the sense that we have rights, you can take it on an epistemological and metaphysical level, that we're free of the universe, we have free will. You can also take it on an ethical level, that we're free of others, that our will does not have to be subordinated to others. You can take it on a political level, that we are free of others, that we don't have to be subordinated to others forcefully, by physical force. In other words, we have rights. Freedom in ethics says that you're an independent human who's responsible for your own self-esteem and your own feelings. Freedom in politics says you're an independent human being who's responsible for your own person economically and physically in the world. So freedom can be proved in all those realms, and you don't prove that we have freedom unless you're talking metaphysically. You just prove that we should have freedom. Like you prove in ethics, man has to survive by use of his mind. The primary use of the mind is reason. Therefore, in order to survive, man has to be free to reason. And if you take that a step further and understand that physical compulsion is the opposite of reason, freedom in politics just says you should be free from other people physically. Freedom in all those realms can be proved. With ethics, you prove that man has to act rationally, and he has to be independent to do that. He has to be able to act on his own mind and not be subject to the coercion of others. Hey. Now, I'm certain like the sun's going to come up tomorrow, I'm certain that these arguments are not going to get into Zorio. Certain of it. So I'm not really worried about converting him. I say this again and again, but please, somebody get something out of this, because he's not.
Free. There's no way to prove through reason that you're free the way you can prove, formulas in physics or mathematics or things like that.
Again, I disagree.
So this is the faith that he's talking about. It isn't some...
So that's the faith that Kant wants you to have.
Some mystical religious faith, necessarily.
It isn't a mystical religious faith, necessarily. Now, what is the distinction? What's one kind of faith and another? You have faith in your feelings about this universe, or you have faith in the preacher's feelings that come from God, or whatever. What's the difference? He says it's not mystical or whatever. Faith is mystical by definition, Zorio, and I don't care if you're an atheist. If you engage in faith, you're a mystic. Again, this is part of the system of objectivism, which is available to you any day you want to start thinking, buddy.
I don't believe that dichotomies exist, just for the record.
He doesn't believe dichotomies exist. Now, just for the record, a dichotomy is simply saying that we're dividing this phenomenon into two aspects. And that's very postmodern of you to say that a dichotomy doesn't exist. That's postmodern view, Zorio, just to let you know.
You're going to get into this in a second, I think. I'm just going to comment on it now. The phenomenal-noumenal dichotomy is not the way it's often portrayed in, say, pop philosophy. Anyone who's actually seriously read Kant knows that the noumenal is not some other world. It's not the world of Platonic forms. I'm just going to see what else you have to say about this. But
now, what is the noumenal world if it's not the world of Platonic forms? And by the way, Zorio, objectivism doesn't qualify as pop culture. Derrida and Foucault, maybe.
Just for now, the noumenal is not what you think it is.
That's a good definition. The noumenal is not what you think it is.
And a special manifest...
Okay, I thought you were going to get into it right there, but you didn't. So let's talk about the phenomenal-noumenal split. The phenomenon is essentially sensation, how you experience the world.
Now, we're talking about the phenomenal and the noumenal world. And I gave the statement right there on the screen, and he listened to it, and then he wants to clarify it. So we'll see what his clarification is. But just to restate briefly what I said, the phenomenal world is the world of the senses, of reality, of man's mind, of the things around us, of the physical world, of science. And the noumenal world is some higher dimension that makes itself known by a feeling of duty. That's what Kant said. That's Kant's. And Zorio stopped and interrupted the quote, so it kind of the thought gets shattered there, and it breaks into its two constituent thoughts. But the thought together as one was that the noumenal world is a superior realm which makes itself known by a feeling of duty. That's Kant. So next we're going to get into the noumenal versus the phenomenal world a bit more here. Zorio's going to do his explanation.
I thought you were going to get into it right there, but you didn't. So let's talk about the phenomenal-noumenal split. The phenomenon is essentially sensation, how you experience the world, how objects give themselves. This is...
Now, he introduces a term right there, and he uses it later. And this is the problem with metaphorical thinking. You can't carry it too far. And that is a problem with postmodernists like Zorio here. They love to take a good metaphor and run. So he's saying objects give themselves to you. And that's the phenomenal world, the world of the senses. Like I said, the world that we perceive, science, reality, objectivity, the stuff all around us, things, the way things are, what is, that's the phenomenal world. And he says the way things give themselves to us, that's the phenomenal world. Now, a freaking chair doesn't give itself to me. I perceive it. Now, later he uses different... That brings with it in its back pocket ideas like you're passive, the chair gives itself to you. You're passive, not active. And it brings other things. And he exploits them and uses them in using that metaphor further, as we'll see. But just maybe I'll do a whole video someday on metaphorical thinking. I haven't thought enough about it to say too much on it, but guys like Zorio run with metaphors. Run with them.
If you know what phenomenology is at all, for Husserl and Mario, who I'm reading right now, so this is kind of off the top of my head, but right there. Objects give themselves to us. The world presents itself to the human being.
Objects give themselves to us, and the world presents itself to a human being. Again, there's not something there in reality. We aren't the one acting. The world is acting on us. We are passive receptors. And we have a nature that we can't get around. That's the categories, our senses. Yeah, this is bullcrap, but this is... Anyways, here we go.
This is the phenomena. This is the world as given, essentially. Whereas what the noumenal world is, world in scare quotes, because it isn't really a world.
The noumenal world, in scare quotes, because it isn't really a world,
is simply a possibility.
Is the possibility. And he goes on about this, is the possibility of the things being the way they aren't when they give themselves to you. Now that is to say that the noumenal world is all possible imagination besides what reality is right now. The idea that things aren't what they actually are when they give themselves to you. The possibility that they're different than what you get them as is the noumenal world. He'll go into this a little more. Now, apart from being a freaking useless and utterly bizarre idea that the world isn't the way we receive it, apart from being useless and bizarre, it's impossible for anyone ever to have come to that conclusion from observing reality, from observing the world. That had to be an arbitrary fantasy that somebody came up with, sitting at a desk with a pencil or a quill or whatever he was writing with. You can't look at reality and come to the idea from reality itself that there's another reality beyond this, that this isn't the real reality. And like you said, this other reality isn't real at all. This is the only real reality, the phenomenal world. The noumenal world is other. Now, this is a postmodern